After burying his mother on 8 January 1994, U.S. President Bill Clinton boarded Air Force One and headed straight to Europe. He wasn't traveling for diplomacy as usual. He was going to pressure Ukraine into giving up one of the largest nuclear arsenals in the world. At the time, Ukraine had inherited a massive Soviet nuclear stockpile. Ukrainian leaders feared Russia and wanted to keep the weapons as a guarantee of survival. But the US and Russia were united. They wanted those weapons gone. Clinton's plan was simple: convince Kiev to surrender all nuclear arms in exchange for money and security assurances. Ukraine hesitated, so Clinton made an unplanned stop in Kiev on the 12th of January 1994, officially to refuel, but in reality to make sure Ukraine wasn't backing out. Inside the VIP lounge at Borispil Airport, he met President Leonid Kravchuk and found exactly what he feared. Kravchuk's advisors, especially Foreign Minister Anatoly Zelenko and Security Advisor Anton Buteyko, were urging him not to sign. According to former U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Strobe Talbot in his book, The Russia Hand, Clinton and Warren Christopher dropped diplomatic niceties and threatened Kravchuk directly. If he backed out, U.S.-Ukraine relations would suffer, a disaster for a country already in economic collapse. Kravchuk panicked and swore he would sign. 2 days later in the Kremlin, he joined Clinton and Boris Yeltsin and agreed to give up Ukraine's nuclear weapons. Between March and May 1994, Ukraine disabled all SS-24 strategic missiles and sent roughly 180 nuclear warheads to Russia. And with that, the world's third-largest nuclear arsenal disappeared. The Budapest Memorandum, promises with zero protection. In December 1994, at an OSCE summit in Budapest, Clinton, John Major, Yeltsin, and Ukrainian President Leonid Kuchma signed the Budapest Memorandum. The US, UK, and Russia promised to respect Ukraine's sovereignty and not use force against its territory. On paper, it sounded protective. In reality, it contained no binding consequences. That's why it failed to stop Russia from attacking in 2014, annexing Crimea, and launching a full-scale war in 2022. Nearly 30 years later, Clinton admitted in an RTA interview on 4 April 2023, "I feel a personal responsibility because I persuaded Ukraine to give up its nuclear weapons. But apologies don't bring back a nuclear arsenal or lost territory." Trump repeats the same strategy, but far more extreme. During his election campaign, Donald Trump claimed he could end the Russia-Ukraine war in 24 hours. He won in November 2024, took office in January 2025, and the war continues. Trump cut U.S. aid, falsely claimed Ukraine received $350 billion, and demanded Zelensky pay it back. His strategy? Appease Putin, pressure Ukraine, and push Kiev to accept Russia's conditions. This approach led to the now infamous 28-point U.S. peace plan, drafted after meetings in Miami between Trump envoys Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Putin's representative Kirill Dmitriev. When the plan leaked to Axios on 19 November, it shocked the world. Why the 28-point plan looks like it was written in Moscow. Key points include cutting the Ukrainian army to 600,000 troops, down from 900,000. Forcing Ukraine to ban NATO membership in its constitution. Blocking NATO from expanding further. Recognizing Crimea, Luhansk, and Donetsk as Russian territory. Forcing Ukrainian forces to withdraw from parts of Donetsk they currently control. Reintegrating Russia into the G8 and lifting sanctions. A blanket war crimes amnesty for all sides. Investing frozen Russian assets in US-led reconstruction, with America taking 50% of profits. And then comes the so-called US security guarantee. Ukraine must pay for the guarantee. If Ukraine attacks Russian territory, it loses the guarantee. If Russia attacks, the US promises a decisive military response, but doesn't say who will actually fight. In other words, another Budapest, but weaker. When Zelensky hesitated, Trump sent U.S. Army Secretary Daniel Driscoll to Kiev with a blunt threat: accept the plan, or the U.S. could cut intelligence again, as it briefly did in March 2025, when Ukraine suddenly lost satellite targeting for HIMARS. Zelensky went on TV on the 21st November and told Ukrainians, "We face a very difficult choice: lose our dignity or lose a key partner." Europe tried offering a modified plan, raising Ukraine's army cap to 800,000 and deleting the NATO ban, but Washington ignored it and continued negotiating directly with Ukraine. In Geneva, both sides reduced the plan from 28 points to 19. The most sensitive issues, borders and sovereignty, were left for Trump and Zelensky to decide personally. The final question: when the final deal is ready, Trump and Zelensky will sign it first. Then it will be sent to Putin. So here's the real question: can Trump force Putin to accept a peace deal that is actually fair to Ukraine? Or is this heading toward another Budapest, a deal full of promises that collapse when Russia tests them? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next episode.